Okay, we are talking about the Sardinian virga. This extremely peculiar weapon is little known, and especially it was very much used in medieval Sardinia, from which it also derives a verb coined by the Aragonese soldiers and knights that describes the gesture of so-called advirgare, or advirgare, which clearly comes from Latin. It means to hit someone with the virga. I instinctively made this gesture because I think this weapon is a throwing weapon, that at most is used as a short stabbing weapon to puncture the opponent. However, this is a simple hypothesis. Still, there is a lot of debate and speculation on this subject. It is not clear whether this weapon is used by cutting or only exclusively by thrusting action, and therefore most likely also by throwing action. For example, there are several models on display here of which one has these barbs. From what the sources tell us, or at any rate from what scholars have found, there were two versions of the virga, and probably one more weapon, which was the verudo, aka verudo, or berudo, or beruda. This weapon has several names: the berudo, verudo, etc., etc., and is described as a weapon exclusively for hunting, so most likely with barbels. Why barbules? Because barbules, for example, were crafted in the arrowheads used in bows for hunting. With the barbules, the cutting surface is enlarged. There is a greater cutting edge than in a point, and therefore it injures the animal or could also injure the enemy. But also, the presence of the blades and barbs prevents an easy penetration, especially if the person has, for example, chainmail or other protection. Then the barb reduces the effectiveness of the penetration of the weapon, so that is why it is considered to be more fitted for hunting. As far as I'm sure, that pulled on a person will do its job anyway. Another interesting thing that the sources tell us is that the virga had a metal portion and the so-called suburdu, which was the handle made of olive wood. And the historians have found an old account on the estimate of how much the weapon cost. I think it was 6 money or 3. I don't remember precisely, however. It was said that one cost tot and the rest cost tot. Clearly it was a composite weapon, so you could discern how much the iron cost and how much the wood cost. Because anyway, even the wood had to be cut in a certain season, had to be hulled, and had to be done a whole series of operations that still gave it a value. So we have, for example, of a canonical virga for how it is typically interpreted, with a sharp point to penetrate the armor. Remember, the context is still that of the 14th century. So 1300 AD, the late Middle Ages, when a lot of chainmail was still being used, with a few pieces of plate armor on the body, such as the brigandine. However, brigandines covered mainly the torso of the person, and so other parts are exposed, and it happens that once penetrated, the javelin had just clear way through the person's body. After all, weapons are all designed to unfortunately injure people.